So we are here with Ramona Tanabe in three, two, one. Hello, Raphael. How are you today?
I am doing great, Yvonne. How about you? How's it going in your neck of the woods?
It's warm and we're in Tampa today, so we're enjoying some really good weather. It's the best time of the year.
It really is. It's just beautiful out here.
Are you excited about our guest today? I know I am.
I am so excited, Yvonne. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I really am. I'm so excited because I'm a big fan and I know she's coming off, this wonderful conference that they just hosted. So I can't wait to talk to Ramona.
So you did it. You spilled the beans. We have Ramona Tanabe with us today from WCRI. Welcome, Ramona. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you. I'm so excited to talk to you, and it's nice to be among friends.
It absolutely is. And I'm so happy because I just saw you. So we were just talking about, we were at WCRI just a couple of weeks ago in Boston. So I enjoyed the conference. I mean, I always say it's one of my favorite conferences of the year, but this year, I don't know what it was. It was especially meaningful. There are a lot of really great conversations beginning to end. So thank you once again to you and the entire WCRI team for putting on a great conference.
Thank you. I think I agree with you. My team did an entire wonderful agenda for everybody. It was 2 days that was packed filled with interesting information, and the buzz was really nice at the conference. It was great to see everybody.
It really was. So sorry that my podcast co host, Mr. Gonzalez, couldn't make it.
I know.
I know I had committed already, Ramona, and I've attended many of them over the years, and it always is such an amazing conference because the stats, the studies, right, the research, and both Yvonne and I are big fans of that, and you guys do an amazing job every single year. So I gotta make sure that it's open on my calendar so I can get up there for it every year.
Good. Well, we posted the dates for next year, so they're on. I think they're on our website.
They are
So
on the website
on
and
the website,
it will be back in Phoenix next year.
it
Yeah.
will.
Awesome. So thank you. Really was great to see everybody. And also, before we dive in, I know you're coming up on a year as the new CEO of WCRI. How does that feel?
It was a really exciting first year, even though I've been with WCRI for a long time, more than 25 years. It was a fun experience. It's been a fun experience and continues to be. I'm thrilled that our board of directors, entrusted me with continuing the work of my predecessors. There was a very solid foundation that I had to build on. And over the years, I've had opportunities to wear so many hats at WCRI. And this is a logical progression for me. And I'm thrilled to have a team that's completely dedicated to the research that we do and putting out valuable information to the workers' comp community.
Well, thank you. So you said 25 years you've been with WCRI.
I have.
Wow. I know we talked about that when we interviewed you. I think it was last year, but that's amazing. And so, how does it really feel? So, you said it was a natural progression. You're coming up on a year. You just completed another conference. Are you happy you made this? Are you happy you made this transition? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm thrilled that I made the transition. I'm hoping that everybody else is too. I think I started at the institute in a support role, and then I was able to become an author. I was involved in building the database that we use for the research. I acted as our corporate counsel, so I had different snapshots into different parts of WCRI. So it was like I said, a logical progression and an exciting part for me, and I'm looking forward to see what we can do next.
That's awesome. And so, you feel like your background with WCRI really helped to prepare you for what you're doing now.
It did. It really did. And I had some really good mentors along the way, both inside the institute and outside, just learning about the industry. I remember the first time I went to a casualty actuarial society meeting, and I thought, wow, they speak a whole other language that's, that I hadn't been exposed to. And
Right.
there was so many different things to learn, which was so exciting. And I still find that every time I sit, even at our own conference, I learned something that I didn't know before that's either specific to comp or the insurance industry or just in, healthcare or in um, HR benefits or how legislation is made in a specific state. There's so much to learn.
Absolutely. Well, we might come back to this. And remind me, you are an attorney. You are an attorney by trade. And remind me how it is that you swam over into our workers' compensation pond.
Um, It was, well, I ended up moving to Boston for my husband's work, and had nothing to do with the insurance industry or with comp before that. I was involved in underwriting municipal bonds, and had gone through municipal bond school and all kinds of equally as exciting things. And I wanted to do something that was supported, that was for the public good, which if you're thinking about what municipal bonds do,
Mhm.
that workers comp is really part of that as well as a social safety net that it provides for all workers. So when I saw the ad, I applied and I came in and discovered there was all kinds of things to learn about workers comp. So I was thrilled to do it.
Awesome. That's a great story. All right, so let's go back to the conference we talked about. I'm just having the conference up in Boston, and it was a great conference. I enjoyed it, beginning to end. I really enjoyed it. I always do. I always say that WCRI is one of my favorite conferences to attend for many reasons. But this year, I don't know. I really enjoyed every single session. There were a lot of different sort of common threads. Mental health was front and center all the way through, which I really appreciate. But starting with the first session, which you guys typically have an economist or somebody who's very familiar with the economy come and talk to us about what's happening with the economy and how that is impacting the healthcare system and workers' compensation. So David Cutler from Harvard was the speaker this year. Loved his session. Very thought provoking. Got us all talking for the couple of days, and I'm still talking about it with a few people. Some very interesting concepts he was talking about. And then you had, well, I'm not going to remember the names of all the sessions, but another favorite was the one on psychosocial factors and how that impacts recovery. Anyway, great job. You
Thank you.
and the team just did amazing, and it was a really great conference.
Well, thank you very much. We agree that there was a nice cohesiveness to the conference, and both of our keynotes were fascinating, but completely different
Yes,
topics.
yes.
I think it seemed important that the audience learned from both of them. Um, David Cutler talked about the potential risks to the healthcare system with the medical workforce and the effects of the complexity of the system. He talked about prior authorization, talked about the financing of healthcare facilities by private equity, and even the effect of immigration policy on the workforce and how those would work into staffing, both at the physician level and at home healthcare. And it really kind of painted a picture of uncertainty for what the future will bring. So, but at least uh, we're not going into it with blinders on. I think it's important for everybody to be aware and perhaps manage within those risks. And
Absolutely.
then, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then Connie Hadley on the second day talked about the effects of loneliness. And I thought some of her statistics on the effect of loneliness on a person's health were shocking.
Yes.
The effect of I think she said it was smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Hmm.
That's stunning to me. But I think we've all, since we've moved toward working remotely and uh, replacing that connectedness with video conferences that you used to feel when you bumped into somebody in the kitchen when you were getting a second cup of coffee, it doesn't exactly replace it. So I think she gave the audience some really good practical ideas to how to re-engage and how to perhaps insulate or protect each other from loneliness.
I think it was a really important conversation. I know that, something that Raphael and I talk about a lot, and that is a conversation going on with a lot of employers dealing with since COVID. A lot of folks are really not wanting to come back into the office, and they want to work from home. And we're starting to really realize, thanks to the research that you all are doing, and like the speakers that you brought to the forefront of talking about, there really are some things that we miss out on when we're not engaging, with other people in the office. And I thought that that was another aspect that was really important.
Yeah, it was useful, but it's um, trying to figure out where is that balance between life working at home and the life you have at home and the life you have and the interactions you have professionally. So we're still, I think, teetering to strike that.
I
Yes.
I was not able to make the conference, but Ramona, I mean, I read lots of different folks in our industries, um, concerns, review, mesmerized by some of the content and the effect, you know, especially this last presentation that you guys are talking about, the effect of isolation, if you will, right?
Mhm.
I mean, folks were really taken aback by what they heard and the messaging and the effect, just like you said, the effect of heavy smokers almost like, right? Type, um, I, wow, reading that was really powerful. Like, man, oh man, oh man. Folks walked away with a really impactful message and stuff that stayed with them, which, for most of us who attend a lot of conferences, very seldom do you really, really grab onto something so much, right? That a week, 2 weeks later, people are still talking about it. People are still out and about saying, "Man, that was meaningful. That was important." So, congrats on that. What a great message. What a great research, if you will, to carry throughout the industry.
Thank you. I think, I'm sorry you weren't able to attend. We would have loved to see you there, and maybe we will next year in Phoenix. Um, I think, carrying that idea, the research that Connie Hadley has done in loneliness, what does that mean in the workers' comp community? And what does that mean? Forget about COVID and the fact that we've all been through the isolation, but what does that mean for an injured worker who's removed from their work situation and the support system they have with their colleagues and their superiors and everybody else in the workplace where they used to be? There's some parallels in there.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Yvonne, since you were able to attend, which sessions did you learn something from that you didn't know before? And what comments do you have for me?
Well, I mean, like we were talking before before we started recording, it's hard for me to pick a favorite. Um, I really like the psychosocial session and some of the study and research that was, shared there. It's not that that was new to me. It's that that's the lane that I swim in. And so I really loved hearing about that and seeing that we're starting to research and put data with these things that we know are absolutely impacting injured workers. Um, Something that I learned, I would say that loneliness session, as much as I do think about, do research, and talk about the impact of mental health and how we need to do better, I was taken aback by some of those statistics. And I think it just
Yeah.
underscores the need for us to better, like you said earlier, balance everything and just make sure that we're taking care of our workers. I always say that's our most valuable resource, and we need to do better. And Raphael and I did a session here in Tampa last week talking about some of those same things. So I just think the more that we can do to shine a light on those kind of statistics and help the employer community understand that this is definitely something. That's the other thing that I was really happy to see. There was healthy conversation during the employer panel about some of these topics. This was before the loneliness discussion, so that was before we heard that stuff. But really good conversation with Michelle Maffei and Ms. Del Guercio, is that her last name, from Disney?
Sharon, yeah.
Yeah. So great conversation there, talking about some of the things that they're doing to take care of their workforce. And I just think that it's just great to see all this coming to fruition.
There's a long line, Ramona, the long line of research on loneliness in health
Mhm.
social determinants of health focused. We've had probably over 20 years of that robust data and research, but it has never been brought home to workers' compensation. It has never really examined our folks and our injured workers and how that affects, the ongoing care and really the uh, I don't know, the improvement of that individual's health. Um, so I was so when Yvonne started to tell me a little bit about the details, I was beyond. I mean, I was so excited, so incredibly proud of WCRI bringing that to us because I mean, for years I've been thirsty of my gosh, there's a huge body of evidence out there. Can we bring it here? Can we learn from it here in our own neck of the woods? So really proud of you guys for doing that. Fantastic.
Thank
Congratulations.
thank you very much. I think, that's continues to be on our research agenda too going forward, because one of the challenges is the strength of the data.
Mm.
You want to make sure you have a good, solid base of information that you're capturing. And I think as more awareness is put on these topics, the data will improve as well.
Absolutely. Like I said, one of my favorite sessions was the one on psychosocial factors. And I think the study focused in on low back pain injuries. And I just think it's really interesting to, like you're saying, take a topic and then let's take some data and some research and marry it with that topic and talk about it in that way. I think it's just very beneficial for us to help us connect the dots and all that good stuff.
In this light, Ramona, I've always been fascinated. How do you come up with those topics?
Mm.
How do you come up with the ideas and how do you sort of, okay, we're going to research this particular area? Because it seems so hard to ultimately land on, what is it that we're going to focus on? How do you do that?
So we have a research committee that helps us with that, but we also have developed internally kind of a listening board approach that anytime somebody leaves WCRI, doesn't matter where we're going or how long the meeting is or who it's with, we have a report back to the whole staff. It might be 10 minutes and say, I had an opportunity to meet with these three people, and this is what I heard. Because we're asking them, what are the issues that you're facing and what can we bring back? And we're doing that through the whole year, and we're constantly developing this kind of soup of ideas, and you start to see commonalities. And sometimes you hear something that would be really interesting. And how do we get the data? What's the specific question that we would ask? So when we started hearing the same information about behavioral health support services, and treating the whole injured worker, I think that was something that came up maybe 10 years ago. um, but moving that, and how can we, what does that mean in workers comp? So gathering that information and putting those together, and then we put it in front of our research committee, and they help us prioritize them, and then we develop research proposals and put together an agenda and go out and do the heavy work that all my colleagues do. And I get to do the easy part, just talking about it. But um, they do all the number crunching and finding the right data and making sure it's accurate and that we're delivering an appropriate message for public policy research.
Thank you. Love that. I may have to pitch a couple of ideas to you or to
Please.
I was
your team.
thinking the
Yeah.
same thing, man. I was thinking the absolute same thing. Listen, on the same lines, to carry forward Raphael's line of questioning, what's coming out? What are you guys working on now that's exciting and that's something that we can look forward to that's coming soon?
I think when we publish the report on psychosocial risk factors, I think, as you've said, it's kind of a groundbreaking area. um, it's not a surprise identifying those risk barriers, but how they're a risk barrier to recovery is new. And I think the next challenge that the industry will have is implementation of appropriate support services to address those barriers to recovery. So, that's one area that will continue. We're looking at the medical workforce shortages that Dr. Cutler brought up during his presentation, and that we've heard a lot of people talking about in the press. Um, Artificial intelligence is a question we always get asked, along with recreational marijuana. Those two are always questions that people bring to us. Um, Trends in large claims and comorbid conditions are also issues that we've been asked to study. So those are on our future research agenda.
Awesome. That's exciting. That's a lot.
It
It
is a lot.
is. Yeah. I just wrote those down. Those are big, meaty, substantive issues, right? Absolutely.
Mhm. In addition, we're going to continue to do our cornerstone work that we have on our multi-state benchmarking programs, as well as our some of the reference materials that we publish, the inventories that we publish every year. So we'll continue to do those as well.
Awesome. I'm always looking forward to seeing the research and the data that you guys come out with. So really appreciate the work that you all do there. So I know everybody's wanting to get away from talking about COVID and COVID this and COVID that, but we're still talking about it. So I want to ask you, with the hyper focus of this being the last few years, and particularly the cost of COVID on the impact of medical costs and indemnity costs, are you doing any research currently on COVID, and is COVID still impacting us? And if so, what should we be thinking about?
It's not something that we have on our research agenda, but it's something that we'll continue to look at in the data in case we see something that we should publish. Because I mean, we had a pretty serious disruption 4 years ago
Mm-hmm.
to not just workers' comp, not just the insurance industry, the whole world. And it's unclear how long we'll feel those effects. I think because workers' comp is a nice kind of intersection of economics and healthcare and public policy, it affects all of those. So the question is, what else is changing because of that disruption that we had? And those are the kind of things we're studying. So they're not direct measures of COVID, but we're looking at some other things, like the piece we did at the conference on inflation.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that everybody talks about because there was this effect of that happened after COVID.
Well, I still, we recently interviewed Joe Paduta, and I still look for people like Dr. Cutler and Joe Paduta and people that understand the numbers way better than I do. It still seems like, we hear over and over that we've had one of the fastest recoveries, in our country compared to other first world countries. And I just think it's fascinating that we have this, this really speedy recovery, but we are still dealing with some, residual issues. So it'll be interesting to see how things continue to play out over time. Ralph, any comments on that?
I I just read Nasi's report, and Ramona, I know that you're on the board there. Congratulations again. Just my goodness, I've got to wherever you go, I need to be there because you are doing it all right. You are at the right places at the right time. But one of the things that jumped out at me from the National Academy's report, and of course they're looking at 2021 numbers, even though the report is published here in 2024, is exactly what you're talking about, the effect. I mean, and those numbers really jump at you because they are looking at, comparing it to 17, 18, 19, and 20, what happened in 21. So it's right there in front of you. Man, it jumps at you, right? The effect that this thing has had, like you said, not just on comp, but the entire world, but specifically to us in comp. So it's something that, you know, we've got to learn from it, and we got to keep it in front of us to make sure that we're absorbing and learning still. Heaven forbid that we have to go through something like that again. But you're absolutely right. Important that we keep mindful that that is still here with us to some degree.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So since you brought it up, Raphael, tell our listeners who might not know what NACI is, what NACI is.
National Academy of Social Insurance, right, Ramona?
That's right.
All right. So I will drop a link in the notes for those that would like to learn more about that.
Have you been a part of that for a long time, Ramona? Is that something that you've been engaged with?
Yeah, at least, oh gosh, a good 15 years or so.
Yeah.
I've been participating on the data panel that kind of puts together that report.
Fantastic. Great work. Always. I look
Thank you.
forward to it every single year. That's what I did over the weekend. I just nibbled at it and reread it a couple of times, and I just did a review of it. And I've kept the entire 26 years the report has been done by NACI. I annually do a review, and I've kept all those numbers. So, man, I am like a
Get
kid
an
in a
account
candy
report.
store with numbers, you know?
That's great.
It's so funny. All right. Well, let's bring it back around to WCRI. Ramona, tell us, we've already talked a little bit about WCRI and your tenure with them. What is it you love most about WCRI?
I have yet to have a boring day in the entire time I've worked there. And um, I love that. But the biggest thing that I love is the people that I've met, not just at WCRI, but in the industry that I've been able to meet because of who WCRI is. It's made my life that much richer.
I love that answer. I
Me
say that
too.
the same often. I always tell people that you never have the same day twice. And I think that's really interesting, a really great thing about it.
Yeah.
I
Ralph?
do- I love that. I love that because isn't that what life is all about, right? Surrounding yourself with amazing folks who poke at you, challenge you, but you also have fun and you get to do this amazing work, right? This collaboration of amazing things, helping an industry move forward. How fantastic. I love that. Your entire 25 career has been about that because I've been following WCR that entire time. So kudos to you as well.
Well, thank you.
You got it.
All right. So I think we touched on most everything. Like let's talk about Ralph and I love to talk about how do we get more younger folks interested in workers' compensation and
Yes.
in this
Yes.
industry. So a couple things I want to ask. I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you so I can hear your answer. But would you think this is a good career path for a new graduate coming out of college? And what would you tell them if you were trying to encourage them to check us out?
Yes, it is a good career path. And I would say, keep your mind open because, and I can tell you this, having graduated from law school, if you said you were going into workers' comp, there was a definite, um, disdain for that from my law school classmates. Um, but keep an open mind because there's so many areas and so many facets that it touches, not just the research area, because obviously we need the folks that enjoy numbers, the applied math people, the statisticians. We need the economists, the folks that are looking at the bigger picture and how that comes together. We need the marketing folks, we need the salespeople. Everybody can be involved in workers comp. So and what I always tell folks when they start at WCRI, when people come in and commute to work, everybody that you see that's going to a job is covered by workers' comp. What we do affects everybody's life.
That's right.
So it has a potential to affect everybody's life. And people don't even know they're covered. Most people don't think twice about it because fortunately they never have a comp claim in their career. However, it's an important part of the system within the United States and the social support system.
Absolutely.
So I think there's plenty of areas to be fascinated with
Yeah,
within comp.
I agree. And Raphael and I always say, in one way or the other, it doesn't matter what you studied, and you kind of said this in so many words. Doesn't matter what you studied. Doesn't matter what your experience has been up to now. There is a place in workers' compensation for you, and we absolutely need you.
Mhm.
We've been saying this for a while, huh, Ralph?
Yeah. As we get to interview folks and really dive in, we have really been, what a marvelous experience it's been. I mean, every walk of professional life out there, from accountants to anthropologists to social economics to lawyering to medicine, you name
Marine
it.
biology, marine
Marie,
biology.
it has been an amazing experience for us to see folks from such diverse backgrounds right here in our own little workers' compensation industry. And like Yvonne said, how wonderful, right? We've got a place for everything and everyone. So welcome, because it really, you said it, never a bad day, right? It's interesting. Every day brings something new. Every day we're learning a little something about ourselves and the industry as a whole.
So that makes me wonder, Ramona, did you guys take a look at, or maybe you're still kind of sifting through the information you received from the conference? I happened to meet quite a few people that were first timers at WCRI. So that's always refreshing. Is that an accident? Are you guys purposely looking for, pulling in the newcomers, or is that just something that we're starting to see just about everywhere?
I think it was a fortunate accident. I have noticed that the number of newcomers has increased over time, so that was a good signal to me that there's more interest in what we're doing and looking for that connection.
Yes.
So it was nice to see that.
So that's one thing as far as feedback I have, and I give this to just about anybody, any conference, is I feel, so those of us that are tenured in the industry,
I love that term.
I know you do. I think it's up to us to not only notice the newcomers, and I always enjoy, connecting with them and hearing what's on their minds, at these conferences, but I think that it shouldn't stop there. I think we should really latch on to those guys and, not necessarily smother them, with our attention, but, make sure that they understand that we appreciate them being here. Almost, I know there's a lot of mentoring going on in the industry, but I'm not sure if mentoring is what I would call it. I always try to participate in the Hoova app and get, that's how I meet the newcomers. Honestly, I use the Hoova app. So here's a shout out to Andrew or whoever it is that's like making sure that everybody's using the Hoova app. It's really a great way to connect to people. And every single time I use it and spend some time making sure that I'm connecting with others, I always walk away with brand new connections that I would not have met if I didn't use the app and purposely reach out. So I'm not sure what it is we need to do more of, but I definitely want to see us all spending some energy and some time, with those newcomers and make sure that we're not only, thanking them for participating, but, finding out what it is. I keep saying we got to listen to these new guys because they're doing things differently. They are shaking things up, and they are not going to sit around like we've all done for many, many years and say, okay, this is the way it's done, so we'll just do it the way it's always been done. They're not okay with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback because obviously it's something that we can put at the forefront and see if we can do something about it.
I think that as a group, as an industry, I think we could harness the energy of these new folks and make sure we don't lose them. I think that's the real key, is that we make sure that we keep them in the industry and make sure that they're seeing all the things that we love about the industry and more.
I couldn't agree more. And the research you're doing speaks to them. I think that really is part of it, is the substance that WCRI is coming up with and researching and putting out. It speaks to a new leadership, right, if you will, of the industry. Those are the significant issues to them as well. So I think it makes perfect sense to me why you may be seeing new folks, interested in and coming to the conference, because what you're doing speaks to them as well.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right. So last couple of questions. We are running short on time. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Ramona. Thank you for being our guest today and coming on and spending time with us. But I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to let Mr. Gonzalez close out with the final question. But so for someone that's hearing this podcast today and isn't familiar with WCRI and wants to learn more or wants to get more involved, could you explain to our listeners what are the opportunities for folks to get involved with WCRI?
Sure. I'm happy to. We have memberships available for folks that are stakeholders in the workers' comp industry, so employers and insurance companies and state organizations, labor organizations. But we're happy to talk to anybody who's involved in workers' comp. And look on our website, if you find something that's interesting and you want to know more about it, reach out to us. We're always happy to talk to people who are interested in comp.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Ralph.
Ramona, and I like where we're headed. The last part of the conversation with new folks. how do we attract new folks? Are there programs out there that you're aware of or that you're involved in, um, that prepare folks or maybe, introduce folks out there for the first time to sort of this line of thinking and this kind of an industry? Give us I know you're such a leader in this industry. You've been around the block a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so you probably have seen some programs out there that say, that prepares folks really well. What are your thoughts on that?
There are a lot of programs that are, something, something, something in workers' comp.
Hmm.
But those you're already in workers' comp when
Yep.
you join that organization. Um, I think it's how do we get the folks that aren't quite there yet? And it's the folks that aren't clear of where do they want their career to go. Who wants to explore an area like that? So it's looking at schools, clubs at schools that have either an economics club or an insurance club, because they have those. Everybody has a club now for different things, and getting the word out there that it's an interesting place to be. Um, and even folks that, the government affairs folks too, because of understanding the differences between different systems. That's another area. So there are plenty of opportunities to do that at either undergrad, graduate school level. um, you know Getting that information out there.
Ramona, now that you say that, you're so right. 10 years ago, I think there were maybe 3 programs in risk and insurance, out in the country. Today, we've got over 30 programs at major universities that
Mhm.
have both undergrad and graduate programs in risk and insurance management. So it's a thing, and it's becoming a thing in lots of campuses around the country. Right here in our own backyard at the University of South Florida, they've got a program that has gotten started a few years ago, and it's growing tremendously here. So you're right. That's what a great way to connect, right? With new
Mhm.
folks, new thinking, an opportunity to grow our industry that way. I love that.
I hope so. Thank you so much for asking me today to speak with you guys. It's always a pleasure.
It's amazing. I love talking to you. And one last question, just because I always like to end on a fun note. I remember from our first interview with you, you shared something about yourself that you have. I forget the term you use. I think you might have said freakish
Yeah.
attraction to heights.
Heights.
Yeah.
Heights. Yes, that would
So
be
I
me.
think that's the word you used. I'm pulling from my memory, so it gets a little fuzzy sometimes. So, have you been on any adventures lately that are involving freakishly high places?
It's interesting that you say that. I was talking with somebody the other day about what do they call it? It was like a zip line boardwalk where it wasn't just a zip line, but you could walk across it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, okay, there's sign me up. I don't know where it is, but I'll go. Um, and I totally want to do the bridge walk in Sydney, Australia.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I haven't done that yet, but why not? Right?
So I think I shared this story on the original podcast with you about my husband. So I'm about ready to fly to Panama, which we're finally making our move to Panama, which has been something in the works for a while. So I'm flying on Friday to go join my husband. But in the area of Panama close to the Costa Rica border, it's mountainous. And so they have zip lining, and they have that in the last 2 years, they've added the part where you can walk. It's called the bridge walk, but they're like floating bridges, right? And
Yeah.
so I do not have the same attraction to freakishness as you do. My husband talked me into doing it, and I literally have a picture. I'll see if I can find the picture and post it on social for everybody to laugh at. But I have a picture of me. I'm going. So of course he pushes me out front and says, "It's okay, honey. Everything will be fine." And I go out. So I'm in the middle of this bridge that moves, right? And then it starts to move, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die." So I hold on for dear life, and I manage to turn around. And who do I see at the other end, jacking up the bridge? But my dear husband.
Of
Oh,
course he was.
I love it.
It
I
might
love
be the
that.
last time I ever get on one of those things, because I literally thought I was going to plummet to my death. Because it's up high at the treetops of the mountain, so you're 4,000 feet off the ground. It's pretty darn high.
But don't you feel accomplished?
I am glad that I survived. I don't know if I'll ever subject myself to that again.
Ramona, I've said to Yvonne, do not send me the invitation. I am not going. You're not going to catch me there.
Oh, okay. So
Every
not
time we
to,
get
not
something
to
like
do
that,
it.
Raphael, we'll just have to pass along to Ramona, and we'll have to live vicariously through Ramona.
There
and
you
her-
go.
her
Take
Oh, I
experience.
love it.
pictures and
I
movies.
love
Yep.
Well, awesome. So
Thank you.
I'm glad we were able to end on a happy, laughing note. It's always good to see you, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Until
Ramona.
later, hasta luego.
Hasta luego.